Man of Steel is a super polarizing film, and now that Henry Cavill's time as the character has officially come to a close, I want to analyze the movie and give my thoughts on it, because while I don't think it's perfect by any means, I do think the downward spiral of the DCEU did sour some people's opinion of the film. The opening of this movie on Krypton is really great and doesn't get talked about enough in my opinion. Krypton is a ticking time bomb that is literally going to implode, and the breakneck action of this opening reflects this amazingly. The movie doesn't stop for very long to explore Krypton or explain in great detail what is happening, which is perfect. It gives us just enough to understand the weight of what Jor-El is doing, while still keeping great mystery around what it means to be Kryptonian, which will be an important thing for Kal-El to come to understand on his own. My only critique of this part of the film is how the Kryptonians handle General Zod. Why would you sentence him and his followers to a black hole instead of just killing them? You're just unnecessarily leaving a chance for him to escape and wreak havoc. If you wanted to indirectly kill him, just imprison him on Krypton. Then Zod would have died with the planet. I'm not gonna harp on this too much because I really enjoy Zod as a villain, and Michael Shannon is acting his ass off throughout the movie, but this was a pretty contrived way to get General Zod to survive the fall of Krypton. Now to talk about the main attraction. Henry Cavil is visually a great Superman, he looks like a Greek god, and I think he was a good choice to play this iconic character. Now, I will be honest, I've never found Cavill to be that good of an actor. He's always come off a bit stiff to me. But, I repeat, there's a but, and not just Henry's, though he is kinda caked up. I think his acting doesn't hurt him in this particular performance, because it works for the character's arc. He should be acting a bit awkward and stiff just given the new territory he's entering and the sensory overload he's emotionally experiencing. Interacting with an AI version of his biological dad who he never met, having Zod and crew hunting him down, and trying to learn what it means to be human. There's a lot for his character to grasp, so I think Cavill's acting, though a bit stiff as per usual, is pretty good here. I do also want to touch upon perhaps the biggest criticism I've seen lobbied against this movie, and that is the tone. A lot of people have panned the dark tone of this film, citing that it conflicts with the bright and hopeful figure that Superman is supposed to be, and I see why people might be upset with certain darker choices, such as having Superman kill Zod, but I've never seen this to be a major issue. I think a dark and somewhat gritty story for Superman's origin actually works and is an interesting direction to take the character. I mean, his backstory is inherently sad with the destruction of Krypton, death of his parents, and Kal-El being one of the last remaining members of his species. So if you depicted all of this in a warm and uplifting way, that'd actually be more weird in my opinion. And just because Superman has a dark and sad backstory doesn't mean that his character also has to be hardened and gritty. In fact, I'd argue that Superman having such a hopeful and altruistic mindset, in spite of his tragic backstory, only makes him more interesting and impressive as a character. So for me, I don't think the tone of Man of Steel is the issue here. I think Superman's portrayal in subsequent DCEU outings was the problem, because Superman was just taken into weird directions after this movie. But if he was allowed to be a hopeful and altruistic hero after Man of Steel, I think far less people would pan the tone of this movie. Ultimately, I think the third act of this film is likely the biggest sticking point on whether or not you like the movie overall, as I've seen a lot of people praise the action, and a lot of people complain about how much destruction Mr. I Can Save Them All is causing. And I've always been pretty 50-50 on the third act. I understand that these are Kryptonians battling, so the excessive destruction is being used to highlight just how much stronger they are than humans, so visually it makes perfect sense, and I think it looks good and is entertaining. But narratively, this does naturally clash with the mission that Jor-El just gave Clark. He literally just told his son that he can save them all. So to then follow that up with a third act where countless innocent people die because of Clark's fight is kind of awkward. Like, it isn't his fault per se, but he is definitely not saving them all. So to show so much of this destruction is just not what I would have done. But by the same token, the level of destruction here does show just how feral and intense of a warrior Zod is. And the General is such a memorable villain, largely because of this third act fight. I don't know, even as I'm writing this, I'm still conflicted on this aspect of the film. Kinda building off of this, one change I would have made is how Clark's human father dies. It's fine for his Earth dad to want Superman to hide his powers at first, but at the cost of his own life? Even if Jonathan wanted Clark to not save him, it just feels unnatural for Clark to abide by his dad's wishes here. It just felt like a contrived way to kill his father off, in my opinion. I think having Jonathan die of a heart attack or an illness of some kind would have worked better. A, because it's less contrived and more realistic, and B, because it'd be a poignant way of showing that Clark can't save everyone just because he's Superman. Even with his great powers, there's things beyond his control. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't still try to save everyone that he can. And I think this very small change to the film would actually alleviate some of the issues that people have with the third act. Because if Clark's entire character arc was all about coming to terms with the fact that he can't save everyone, then the ending of this film where Superman is forced to kill General Zod would make more thematic sense. Because not being able to save his father would help Clark come to grips with the fact that he can't save Zod. So in order to protect Earth, he has to kill him. I know some people would still not like the fact that Superman was put into a position where he had to kill, but I personally think it is more of a thematic issue than anything else. To think that you can be a hero that saves the world without ever having to cross that line is naive in all honesty. Just to briefly touch upon Lois Lane in this film, I've always thought that Amy Adams gave a pretty solid performance here, and the movie hits all the right beats with her character. I like that she is able to piece together where Superman is from through her expert reporting skills, and the fact that Lois inspires Clark's faith in humanity is a very nice touch. All in all, I've always thought Man of Steel was a solid 7.5 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's a great film, as there are some thematic issues that I would have personally made a few different creative choices to address, but there's a lot that this film does well. General Zod is a phenomenal antagonist. Lois serves as a really integral character and not just a helpless love interest, and the action feels really epic. So to be honest, I've never understood why this film was so polarizing for fans. Like, I know where the issues lie, but I never saw why some people took such offense to this movie, or why others claimed it to be the greatest thing ever. To me, it's always just been really solid. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, please feel free to drop a like or a subscribe. And remember, this is just my opinion, so if you agree, disagree, or just have strong Man of Steel thoughts, as always, I'd love to hear you in the comments. Until next time, peace.